guys, it's Miss Edwards again. So now I'm showing you guys my crayon drawing, and my current obsession is the Mandalorian show, and so that means my deeper obsession is Baby Yoda. So I'm doing a quick pencil sketch of Baby Yoda. I'm not using a reference, so it's gonna look kind of wonky, but this is how cute he looks in my brain. So I'm just using, again, still my 12 basic crayons. I went in there first with a pencil. You don't really want to draw crayon on top of pencil very dark until you erase it, so I'm trying to outline a little bit of it in crayon first, and then I'm going to go ahead and erase most of my pencil lines. This takes kind of a little bit of time to really figure out, so I'm outlining almost all of it in just like my normal dark green pencil crayon. And I'm using a lot of different weird colors. Like on top of the green, I'm using a lot of brown because brown has a lot of red in it, so it works as a really good complementary color. So I'm drawing his little bitty hands. I'm outlining it again. I had to zoom in because I could no longer see it. And now I'm erasing my pencil lines. There was a smudge and I couldn't get rid of it. So I'm starting with yellow. I'm doing something called an undercoating. So using the yellow, I'm creating areas that I want to have lighter on his skin even when I put green on top of it. Since it's a crayon and since it's waxy, it kind of makes a little barrier between colors. So when you're layering it, you can really see the other colors shine underneath it. So I'm adding a little bit of red too because your skin looks more red the closer your blood is to the surface, which sounds creepy, but that's how it works. And Baby Yoda from the show looks like he has more of like a green or a purple color, but I thought the red, just to make him apple-cheeked, was way cuter. So I'm just laying in green, and it looks like my hand is just shaking, which is really funny. It looks like I'm moving like the Flash. But I'm layering in green, I'm layering it lightly. You can see that I'm using kind of the side of my crayon. I'm using mostly little circles to make that as even as possible. I'm darkening up the tips of his ears just a little bit on top of that yellow, and now I'm adding my first couple values in here. I'm adding just a little bit of my, I wouldn't say shadow shapes yet. This is more like the darkening areas around the skin before there's any cast shadows or form shadows or anything on the rest of his ears. And that's just using still the same green color. I haven't switched to a new color yet. I'm just using that green. I'm making a little bit of a cast shadow on his nose, a little bit of a thing there. Adding in those little, like, not eyebrows, but just those brow ridges to give him a little bit more emotion. I haven't drawn in the eyes yet, but they're black, so that's gonna look funny when I start drawing those things in. I'm still just using this nice green crayon. I give him his little chin. Oh, he's so cute. It's kind of fun watching this. I don't do this very often when I rewatch my own artwork, but it's kind of fun. So I picked up purple, put it down, picked up brown, decided to keep that color. So again, using brown on top of the green, it kind of works as a little bit of a complementary color since there's so much red in it. When you put a complementary color on top of their complement, it usually creates a nice muted color, which means it's not super vibrant, but it also adds some really good shadow color to it. So now I'm starting to layer in that darker brown to give it more depth, to give it more of a warm color to everything. Oh, he's so cute. Okay, so now I'm going back in with my green crayon. I'm just darkening up my edges again, and now I'm going to under the eye, switching to the other ear, just sort of like starting to color all that stuff out. And you can see when I pause every now and again, that's just me thinking about what I need to do next. Art is a process, and sometimes it takes a while to really figure it out. So I'm going back in with my brown crayon, doing the ear, very similar that I did the rest of his skin, where I'm doing little circles to sort of make this all work and look really nice. I decided to add a little bit of a form shadow under the ear, or is it a cast shadow? It's a cast shadow. So a cast shadow is shadow cast by the light source. So like if the shadow is touching the tops of his ears and the bottom of his ear are in shadow, the shadow is cast from his ear. So I believe it's a cast shadow, I say, as I can't actually remember. Ooh, this is cool. So I'm actually going in with a white crayon right now to blend. You can use white crayons to blend, and it actually does really cool stuff. Using a white crayon, it kind of mixes the colors together a little bit better to make smoother transitions. I jumped into coloring on the hands because I almost forgot about them. And now I color the hands. I don't do a fantastic job at coloring the hands because I just wanted to focus mostly on coloring his face. So my hands are kind of slapdashed, where I've got like the yellow and the red at the tops of his knuckles. I had to show you my really bright neon green crayon. I'm using this bright green crayon as his actual skin color. So I'm throwing that down there. I'm still doing that same really shaky quick drawing, which works really well for me. All it means is I'm pushing very lightly and I'm moving kind of quickly so I get a lot of coverage really fast, and I'm going through all those little nooks and crannies of the paper. So I'm just throwing this down, and while I'm doing this, I'm also blending. This lighter green color blends really well with the reds and the yellows, so I'm blending it on top, and I'm just kind of smearing the crayon with the crayon. I'm using the wax to sort of build up the wax. Going back in there with my dark crayon, I'm darkening up my shadows. I'm going back into the hand to get his little fingernails in there. He's got little tiny claws in the show, which I think are creepy and adorable. I didn't have the right kinds of colors to make the claws. They're the lighter, sort of almost sickly pale green in the show, and I didn't like that. So I decided to make them just like a nice little warm brown color. Again, my hands are a little bit slapdash. They're not done really well, which is okay because we're playing with crayons. The best part about crayons is that you can make so many cool things with them, and then you don't have to worry about getting more. You can always just get more. They're really inexpensive, they're everywhere, and you can have boxes of them just hidden in your house somehow. That's where mine came from. I don't remember buying my crayons, they just showed up in my house one day. I'm layering more of those colors. I'm using the dark green, switching to the light green, deciding on which color to use. I picked this nice burgundy color to sort of bring out those browns and the reds in his fingernails. And I'm throwing down that brown color again to be shadow shapes on his hands. Now I get the shadows wrong on his hands. Those aren't totally correct, but they looked good enough that I just moved on. Like the shadows would be at a different part of his hand if it was real. I mean, it's not real, but it would be at a different part of his hand. You guys can see my head kind of bob in and out of there on the corner because I had to lean in really close to get that red. So I'm adding more red. I'm appling up his cheeks and throwing a little bit of red in the ears. And now I'm going in with blue. Now I'm making real cast shadows and core shadows where I'm adding a nice dark layer to it. I'm adding a little bit more color, and I'm darkening up the eyes. Again, his eyes are black in the show, so I had to start layering colors kind of a weird way. Starting with blue is an easy way to sort of go around not knowing how you're going to color in the eyes, because it's a nice middle ground between your greens and what would be a black or a purple. So I'm still throwing in my blues. Camera fuzzed out again for a second. I'm sorry, I had to figure out my settings on this thing. And the light keeps changing because it's different times of day. I was going in and out of my house all day on Sunday for Mother's Day, and I could not sit down for more than an hour and work on something. So I had to jump up and do 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there, 15 minutes here. You see the side of my head again. So now I am coloring in his eyes. I'm starting with that blue color again, because this blue will create a nice value for the black to sit on top of. And look, I'm even throwing in purple. I'm trying to build my darks. Think about like you're stacking them on top of each other. So if I have blue underneath it, purple on top, and black on the very top, you'll have all of those colors kind of pushing through. You'll be able to see them. And this is me. I'm trying to flick off a couple of those little black spots. Going back in with the white crayon, blending these colors out a little bit. You can kind of see how they blend and smudge really nice. Getting that little part of his face, going back into the ears. I have this sped up a lot. I probably spent about an hour on the drawing itself, and this video is only going to be about 12 minutes long. So the whole thing is sped up 6 times, and I broke my crayon. Absolute frustration, but you know what the best part about crayons? They work from every end. You can use a crayon in every way you want. So I'm going back in there, blending all these colors together. See how nice and soft it looks when you blend everything? Okay, finally working on his little cloak thing. This is the hardest part for me because fabric is really hard to draw, and it's really hard to show fabric when drawing in crayon because it kind of mixes and you get a lot of wax buildup. So I just thought it'd be nice to have that nice brown layer on there that I could add some more darker colors to, and I'm doing that. It's so funny watching this because it just looks like I'm printing it out of a computer where it's just like, and then very suddenly I have crayon everywhere. So I'm adding that little cuff around his hands. And this whole image wasn't supposed to be like this when I first started. I was just gonna do like his face and a little bit of like a little scarf looking thing. But I decided that it'd be better just to almost fill out the whole image. I'm using blue on top of the brown first, which actually was a mistake. I should not have used blue. It immediately made the colors really strange. I should have stuck with using a red or even just using the darker brown. But I was trying to be creative, and I was trying to throw in a lot of color into the bottom half of this image, and it didn't work really well for me. So I also started doing something called cell shading on him, which is strange, where I actually blocked off the shadows and then drew them from there. So now I'm finally adding brown to make it make more sense. And you can see I'm kind of getting to the point of frustration. I threw in a little bit of black there because the colors were really, really wrong. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, I really love his face. I like the cloak enough and I just want to finish it. So I just am going in there with the side of my white crayon and I'm blending it all out. It looks a lot better blended, which is kind of cool. So blend, 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 blend. Oh my gosh. That's so much blending. This is just on a normal piece of printer paper, if I forgot to mention that. Sorry. It's a normal piece of printer paper, and I was holding it with my fingers, and normally when I'm drawing, I try really hard to keep my fingerprints off my paper because our hands are oily and you can get fingerprints everywhere on accident, and I'd been at my horse barn that day, and of course my hands were clean, but it just meant that I was like extra sweaty, so I was really afraid of getting fingerprints on everything. So I just gotta watch out, watch out, watch out. And then I pretty much decided to be done with him at that point. I didn't want to do a real background, so I thought let's add a cute little glow. So I'm throwing in some orange in there, and you can kind of see my trepidation where I'm like, do I really want this to be orange? But then I decided I better just push on through and finish. Because when you guys are working on stuff like this, you're actually looking for something called finished, not perfect. If you had to wait for every one of your drawings to be perfect, you would actually never improve as an artist. You would only improve that one drawing. You would spend so much time on that trying to make it perfect that you wouldn't actually experience learning new things about art. So I love finished but not perfect. So now I'm adding some little green hearts because I love him so much. Baby Yoda, it's like a baby that's also a grandparent that's just very wrinkly. Oh, there we go. So I had a lot of fun drawing this, and I really hope you guys had a happy Monday and you played with your crayons and you had a good time working on it. I have the final still image coming up in just a second, and it looks very different. I need to zoom it out a little bit. Taking pictures of crayons is always a really hit or miss, so it looks way better in person, I promise. All right, guys, I can't wait to see you. Bye.